All right, today we're diving into the confession of a man named Shen Wanzhou. It's this incredible story about a spectacular rise to power, an absolutely catastrophic fall, and ultimately a powerful lesson about what wealth really means. It might sound like some ancient legend, but trust me, it's all about a very real, very human struggle between greed and finding peace.
You know, this ancient proverb is pretty much the key to the whole story. It perfectly sets up the central idea, a life drowning in a sea of suffering, and this beautiful concept that salvation, that shore, isn't some far-off destination. It's just a simple choice to turn around. Keep that image in your head as we go through this.
So, let's start at the very height of his power, in a world that looks like a beautiful, gilded cage. We're in the city of Jinling, where one man's name meant unimaginable wealth, and the prison he unknowingly built for himself with it.
So this is our guy, Shen Wanzhou. He didn't just own a business, he controlled the entire salt and silk trades, basically the whole economy. His mansion was famous, a sprawling estate where it felt like money grew on trees. On the outside, he had absolutely everything you could possibly dream of.
But here's the thing about his empire. It wasn't built on smarts alone. It was built on the ruin of others. He was absolutely ruthless. We're talking paying people to sink his rivals' ships, killing dozens. He'd forge documents to destroy his competitors, even driving one family to suicide just so he could steal their secrets. Just devastatingly cruel.
And this quote, wow, it tells you everything you need to know. Whenever his wife would plead with him to be more charitable, to think about their family, this was his answer. He truly believed money wasn't just power, it was goodness itself. And that belief built a huge wall between him and everyone he was supposed to love.
So this is the really critical part. While he's living in a palace, he's actually in a prison, what's called a prison of the heart. He was so consumed by greed and this constant gnawing fear of revenge that he couldn't even sleep. He'd just sit up all night surrounded by all this priceless stuff, totally convinced the ghosts of his victims were watching him from the shadows.
And this brings us to the story's big turning point. Because a prison built on money is only as strong as the gold holding it up, right? Well, for Shen Wanzhou, the walls were about to come crashing down. And when it happens with whiplash speed. First, a political coup wipes out all his powerful friends in the government. He panics, right? Tries to escape in the middle of the night with his entire fortune. But then, a massive storm hits, the river floods, and every last bit of his gold is washed away. And to top it all off, his most trusted servant gets caught, and to save his own neck, spills everything, hands over all the evidence.
So in a single night, literally, he goes from being the richest man in the city to a prisoner on death row. His home is taken, his family's thrown out on the street with nothing, and he is left completely and utterly alone.
And in that cold, dark cell, this is the question that just echoes in his mind. He spent his whole life chasing money, believing it was the only thing that mattered. And now that it was all gone, he realized he had nothing. No real friends, a family that barely knew him, and a soul crushed by guilt. He'd gained nothing of any real value.
Okay, so this is his absolute rock bottom. But remember that proverb from the beginning? The shore is just a turn away? And right here, in this moment of total darkness, a little bit of light starts to peek through. Shen gets incredibly sick, burning up with a fever, basically on the brink of death. And that's when he meets Master Liu Fan, an old monk who volunteers at the prison. And Liu Fan doesn't lecture him or judge him. He just cares for him, cleans his forehead, gives him water. This simple, unconditional kindness is something Shen hasn't felt in years.
When Shen is finally able to speak, he asks if there's any hope for a man like him. And Liu Fan's answer is just profound. He says, the shore isn't someplace you go after you die. It's a choice you make right now. The second you decide to stop sinking and turn your mind towards something good, you've already started to find your way back.
And he doesn't just leave it at that. He gives Shen a real concrete plan, broken down into what he calls 3 offerings. First, the body offering. Use the life you have left to make up for what you've done. Second, the heart offering. Use your guilt to grow good thoughts. And third, the honesty offering. Use the truth to fix your past mistakes. So Shen takes this to heart, and he begins a brand new journey. Not a journey to collect gold, but one to find a totally different and way more meaningful kind of wealth. And he starts immediately. He confesses everything he knows, which actually helps get lighter sentences for some of the people who were just innocent pawns in his games. His death sentence is changed to exile in a brutal copper mine, and there he uses his knowledge, not to get rich, but to make things safer for the other workers. He shares his food, helps the weak. For the first time ever, his skills are being used to help people.
The ultimate test comes about 5 years later. A deadly plague sweeps through the area. Even the guards run away in fear, but Shen stays. He uses his old knowledge of herbal remedies from his trading days to take care of the sick, risking his own life. He saves dozens of people, and this incredible act of self-sacrifice actually earns him a full pardon from the emperor.
I mean, just look at the transformation here. It's night and day. He traded all that wealth for poverty, but in exchange, he got inner peace instead of constant fear. He went from being a man everyone feared to a man everyone respected. And maybe most importantly, he went from having a broken family to being reconciled with his son. After he's released, his son, who's now a young man, finally finds him. And in this really emotional reunion, Shen is able to explain the biggest lesson of his life. He tells his son that real wealth was never, ever about the gold. It was about having peace in your own heart. So in the end, Shen Wanzhou did find the shore. It just wasn't the one he'd been sailing towards his entire life. It wasn't some port filled with treasure, but simply a place where his mind, his heart, could finally be at rest. That was his home.
And so, this ancient story leaves all of us with a very modern, very personal question. It kind of forces us to look at our own lives, at the things we chase, and ask ourselves, what is the shore we are really sailing towards? And what is our true wealth?